Good evening. This is the State of the Union, but not the State of the Union of the United States. This is the State of the Union of Minnesota sports. Ladies and gentlemen, Minnesota sports fans of all sports, all genres, welcome back to tuning in to our channel here live again at the Hero Spell Studios. It has been about 2-ish months since we've been back here recording, and we are so happy to be back here recording this video for you all. There hasn't been that much content lately, so that's why we're in here today after about a 2-month hiatus to talk about the current status of Minnesota sports team. That's the Twins, the Wolves, the Wild, and the Minnesota Vikings. We are going to start off with the Minnesota Twins, who just began their season last week against the Kansas City Royals and just finished up their 3-game series with the Miami Marlins. They had a 3-game series with the Kansas City Royals, swept them 3-0 series. Twins are looking great. They're never going to lose a game. Miami Marlins come into town. Twins win again, 4-0. They're never going to lose a game. Last 2 games, the Twins have dropped 2 in a row to the Miami Marlins. We've seen a lot of tangibles and a lot of patterns from last year that has carried over to this year for the Minnesota Twins. It's not desperation time yet, right? There's still 157 some games left. No time to panic. But Pagan, Mr. Pagan, you had a lot of woes last year, and into this year you almost had a big woe. I understand you're an MLB pitcher. I understand you got a lot of reps under your belt. But I saw a lot of times last year you kind of blew it late in games. You almost did it again. I'm proud that you didn't do it this time. That was against that was against the Kansas City Royals. You almost blew it. You didn't blow it this time. Proud of that. A little bit of a hitting slump for the Twins. How are they going to overcome that? The big boys, Correa, Buxton, you guys got to find a way to put the bat on the ball. Easier said than done. I know if I was in there, I don't know how good of a chance I would do, but that's why they pay you the big bucks. That's why they pay you guys as the pros the big dollars to put that bat on the baseball and get some hits. We're not going to beat the Yankees scoring 1 run. We're not going to beat the Dodgers scoring 1 run. We're not going to beat the Angels scoring 1 run. Hear what I'm saying? You're not going to beat that many teams scoring 1 run. We got to find a way to put the bat on the baseball and get it in the field to play and get around those bases. Thirdly, speaking of getting around the bases, the Twins don't have anybody that can steal a base. I know everybody's going to say, oh, what about Buxton? They don't want Buxton to steal bases because he always gets hurt, whether it's in the outfield or on the base path. Buxton, I know you're fast, and don't let this get to your head because the coaches are not putting you in the outfield right now, not because they know your skill level. They all know your skill level. I know your skill level. Everybody in Minnesota knows you're a very talented ball player. We've just seen it enough. You've been hurt pretty much every year that you've been here. We don't want to see it again. Get your rest. Know your niche. Understand where you stand right now with the coaching staff because you are one of the most valuable assets on the Minnesota Twins. If you're watching this, we don't have anything against you. We just don't want you to get hurt. Please don't get hurt, Buxton. We want to make a deep run in the playoffs this year with a guy who can steal first base to second base with ease like that. So please stay healthy and keep getting hits. That's it for the Minnesota Twins. Now shifting our focus to the Minnesota Wild, who are making their playoff push, have clinched the playoffs, a spot in the playoffs, not sure which seed they're going to get. Right now it's a 3-way split between the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, and the Minnesota Wild, all with 98 points heading into Thursday, April 6th. Thursday, April 6th, they're all tied at 98 points. Unfortunately, the Wild have that bottom spot. They don't have the tiebreaker over the Colorado Avalanche or the Dallas Stars. That means Colorado, the 1 seed, would play the wild card. Dallas, the 2 seed, would play the Wild, and Dallas would have home field advantage over the Minnesota Wild. That all could switch up, though. There's still about a week and a half left of hockey left to see where the seeding plays out. That's going to be really important for the Wild. I don't want to play Colorado round 1. That is a big no-no in my opinion. Colorado is very skilled. They're very fast, and we're probably going to have to play them, but I hope it's not round 1. Let's hope it's like round 3 or something like that. Dallas we could probably take, but the wild card teams are going to be where the money is made because Seattle, I feel like Seattle couldn't keep up with the Wild. We've only played them twice, but each of those 2 times, I think they beat us once, then we beat them once. I don't think in a 7-game series they'll be able to keep up with us. The same goes for Winnipeg. Winnipeg will definitely not be able to keep up with us. For some reason in their barn, the Wild struggle, but we'll be able to keep up with them and keep pace all the way through the 7-game series. It probably won't even make it to 7 games, probably 5 or 6 games if the Minnesota Wild played Winnipeg, especially if the Wild had that home field advantage. So we shall see. Still a couple of games left to be played, still wins to be had, still losses to be had. The Wild have played without Kaprizov the last 3 weeks. However, that hasn't stopped them one bit. They're scoring more goals than they did with Kaprizov. Kaprizov on the ice, the Wild they won every game in overtime, and it was like a 1-0 game. 2-1 game in overtime. Shootout. Now that Kaprizov's gone, the Wild have been getting like those 3, 4, 5 game or 3, 4, 5 goal games. And I don't know where it came from because Kaprizov is obviously the most talented player on the ice sheet whenever he's on the ice, maybe minus when McDavid's out there, which is a very rare thing, or a couple of the Colorado players. But what is making the Wild tick now that Kaprizov's not out there? They're scoring these goals. Gustafsson is playing out of his mind. I sure hope Gustafsson gets that start in every single playoff series. Bearing injury, then Fleury can play. Fleury, I know you've had your time. Probably going to be a Hall of Fame goalie, most likely going to be a Hall of Fame goalie. But Gustafsson has earned his spot to start in the playoffs for the Minnesota Wild. No disrespect to you, Fleury. You've had your woes this year, though. I can't deny that. You've had your times where everybody's like, "Oh, Fleury again." Like, I'm sure you've heard it. I've definitely heard it from a lot of my immediate people around me. They've been like, "Oh, Fleury again. Why is he? How's he let up this goal?" Gustafsson has pretty much been lights out, man. And kudos to you because you've earned a lot of Minnesota hearts this year. One of them including me. Nothing against Fleury. I just feel like Gustafsson is the better goalie going into the playoffs for the Minnesota Wild now. Not saying 10 years ago. That might be different for Fleury, but as of now, Fleury, Gustafsson. Minnesota Wild rolling into the playoffs in about 2 weeks. Let's stay watching out for that. I definitely will be. Next, we are going to be shifting our focus to the Minnesota Timberwolves, like the Minnesota Wild are making a playoff push. However, they are barely hanging on. They are, 1.5 games ahead from not even making the playoffs right now. Got Karl-Anthony Towns back after who knows how long of an injury that was. I don't need to get too far into that. He said he wasn't truthful about his injury status. Said he was going to be back in 4 to 6 weeks. That was in November. Just came back now. Yada, yada, yada. We know that. But there's still been times on the floor. Mr. Anderson has played well, right? Rudy Gobert has had his times where people are like, oh, why is he making the moves he's making? But Rudy Gobert has driven the rim many times, especially in the last month that I've seen, and just put it down. Just one of those whoa moments for me. Ant hits a lot of clutch threes. McLaughlin's hit some clutch threes. Like, these guys can play, right? But will they show up to play once playoffs times starts? As of right now, the Minnesota Timberwolves are 9th in the Western Conference standings. That means if the season ended today, they'd have to play a play-in game with the 10 seed. I believe that's the Spurs or the Pelicans. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And then they'd have to play whoever the 7-8 seed is, the loser of that game. So the winner of the 9-10 game plays the loser of the 7-8 game. The winner of that series will play the 1 seed, which is going to be the Denver Nuggets. That will be a tough test. If the Timberwolves make it into that 7-8 seed, they play a 1-game play-in, and they will play the Memphis Grizzlies, the 2 seed. Again, I know you all watched last year. I did a Game 5 recap, if you remember that, of the Memphis Grizzlies game. I did a recap of the game, but they had a series. The Memphis Grizzlies played the Minnesota Timberwolves. It was pretty, and then it was not. It got ugly real fast. And Ja Morant is not in prison, folks. He is on the floor. He's playing for his Grizzlies. And if the Timberwolves had to play them again, I don't think they'll win. I really don't. We'll see. Prove me wrong. But they got a good squad over there led by Ja Morant and Mr. Brooks. They got a good squad, man. Minnesota Timberwolves right now are the 9 seed heading into the playoffs. We'll see how they do. Last but not least, why everybody tunes into the channel for the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings. I could sit here and talk about what for the Minnesota Vikings? Kirk Cousins going to the 49ers? Lamar Jackson coming to the Vikings? Who's playing linebacker? Who's playing running back? I don't know. Dalvin Cook's going to get traded? Maybe. CJ Ham's still on the team. Adam Thielen's gone. Eric Kendricks is gone. Harrison Smith re-signed with the Vikings, right? Brought in Byron Murphy. So what are we going to do? Where do the Vikings stand as of right now? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't really know. I don't know how the Vikings are going to do. We get a tough schedule this year. Chiefs, Bills, Bengals. There's a lot of tough teams on the Vikings schedule that we're going to have to not only play at US Bank Stadium, which is good, but the Vikings lost some clutch games last year at US Bank Stadium, one of them being against Dallas. We're going to have to play a lot of tough teams on the road this year as well. We'll see. As of right now, I'm rolling with Kirk Cousins as our quarterback, CJ Ham in the backfield blocking, Dalvin Cook as that RB1. Alexander Mattison got that extension. He will be a key player this year for the Minnesota Vikings. You watch. Alexander Mattison is going to get a lot of reps this year, believe me. Especially if Dalvin Cook's not on the team, but as of right now, he is. So I'm going Dalvin Cook, RB1, Mattison 2. Kene Nwangwu is that return punt specialist, getting those RB3 reps for the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, where do the Vikings stand right now? Their defense has a lot of holes. In the draft, what do they got to do? They got to go linebacker, they got to go D-line, and they got to go O-line. If you watch the Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl last year, well, I say last year, but it was probably only 2 months ago, both those teams had nobody running backs. Isaiah Pacheco, Jack McKinnon, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. I think like 2 of those guys had tutties. Why did the nobody running backs get the tutties? But all these great running backs didn't even make the dance or didn't even make the playoffs because the game is won in the trenches. You buffed that offensive line, Minnesota. We had a good core piece. We had a good core offensive line right now. Just get maybe one key piece at the, let's say, the right guard position, left guard, whatever. Buff that up, whether it's in free agency or whether it's in the draft. That could move mountains, whether we have Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison, or Kirk running the ball. Like, as long as you have a good O-line, you will be able to effectively run the ball 99% of the time, and that is a fact. Games are won in the trenches. We'll see if the Minnesota Vikings can win this offseason in the trenches. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to the Minnesota Sports April edition of the State of the Union. That's it for today. Thank you, everybody. If you liked what you saw today and would like to subscribe to the channel, it's very simple. There's a subscribe button down here. If you don't have a Google account to log in, make one. It's free. You also get access to Google Drive and a bunch of other super cool tools that are free. Gmail, whatever. And it saves automatically. You don't even have to hit save. It saves automatically if you want to do a doc, whatever. Create that, hit subscribe, and then like the video. And drop a comment, too. Tell me I look like crap today. Tell me I did a terrible job. Tell me I did a great job. Tell me I look great today. Thank you, everybody. Drop a comment or a heart in the comments for Hero Spell Studios, who does everything and more for the channel. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening. And go Minnesota.